Welcome back. All right, so today, in my continuing look at teams that have been eliminated from the playoffs, we're going to talk about the St. Louis Blues. And St. Louis, there was that glimmer there that maybe they could pull off a huge upset over Colorado, and then the series ends up going the other way. And a lot of it hinges on, yes, the hit by Kadri on Binnington. I still think Colorado would likely have knocked out St. Louis, but that definitely puts, a shadow over that. That being said, St. Louis Blues, a team that won the Stanley Cup in 2019. I still remember that pretty vividly. And we'll see if they can get back there and win another one. This is a team that I think is close. That being said, this is a team that before they finally won that cup in 2019, there were a lot of times that they either had a really good roster, great regular season, or just, they were right on the verge and couldn't quite get there. So we'll see if they're able to get back or not. Now, you can count on them making the playoffs. The only time in the last 10 years they've missed the playoffs is 2018, and they barely missed. This is not a case of them being terrible in 2018 and having an off year. They were good. They just finished right below the playoff line, and it took until game 82 for them to get eliminated. This year they were 49, 22, and 11. They were excellent in the month of April going into the playoffs, 12, 2, and 2. They were rolling. This was a team that if they were down after one at home, good luck. They were still going to come back and beat you. This is a team that absolutely made believers out of a lot of people along the way. And so you have to focus on how that worked and then what didn't against Colorado. Minnesota, they beat them in the first round in 6, and then they lost to Colorado in 6 in the second round. And there's no shame in losing to the Avs. The Avs are a pretty stacked team. So when we look at the playoff scoring leaders for St. Louis, Perron stands out because Perron was their best player. 9 goals, 4 assists, 13 points. Best player offensively. Their best all around, I would say, was Ryan O'Reilly, who had 7 goals, 5 assists for 12 points in 12 games. So Perron and O'Reilly led the way. Veterans, a lot of playoff experience, makes a lot of sense. Buchnevich, a goal and 10 assists. He got a lot of valuable experience in these playoffs. Kyrou had 7 goals, 2 assists, and the same. And we saw that Jordan Kyrou is going to be a guy who's able to score in big games, key games, right? And then Tarasenko had 6 goals and 3 assists. And Tarasenko stood out this year for St. Louis as a player who, coming into this year, remember, does he want to be there? He asked for a trade. What's going to happen? They didn't trade him. He doesn't get taken by Seattle in the expansion draft, and I still say that was probably the right call for Seattle because coming into this year, we had no idea what to expect from Tarasenko. We didn't know how healthy he was going to be or whether or not he'd be able to play a majority of the games, much less almost all of them. So I understood why they stayed away from him at the time. And I don't think that he would have had the goal totals in Seattle. He wouldn't have had the line mates that he had in St. Louis or the opportunities either. Their playoff goaltending does tell a story. Binnington, who had struggled in playoffs since the 2019 Cup win, got his mojo back, and he was 4-1 with a 949 save percentage. I think if you're a Blues fan, you should be hoping that carries over into next year. That after what was kind of a mediocre by his standards regular season this year, that this playoff run can help, catapult him back to where he should be as a goaltender in the NHL. Husso was 2-5 with an 890 save percentage. I still say Husso had a very good game 6. I know that he got worn down by the end of it. It's one thing that I think that we gloss over and take for granted a bit. These playoffs are a bit of a drag for players. They're not getting those extra days off. It's a game every other day. So it does wear players down, including goaltenders. And I think in the Carolina Rangers series, I think we've seen that somewhat with Ronta. And so, again, we'll see with St. Louis whether or not Husso's the starter next year or Binnington. But I think both of them are coming back, and I'll come back to why I'm saying I think they both come back. So your regular season leaders, Tarasenko, 34 goals, 48 assists for 82 points in 75 games. Again, he exceeded any and all expectations for him. Robert Thomas came into his own as a passer, an elite level passer. 20 goals, 57 assists, 77 points in 72 games. Buchnevich, 30 goals, 46 assists, 76 points in 73 games. For Kyrou, 27 goals, 48 assists, 75 points in 74 games. And I think Kyrou's got more to give. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrou ends up putting up 90 points next year. Barbashev. Barbashev's going to be an interesting one because I kind of feel like this was a career year for him. 26 goals, 34 assists, 60 points. Everything kind of fell into place for Barbashev in the regular season. He was very quiet in the postseason. Very, very quiet. And so we'll see whether or not his goal and point totals stay the same next year in the regular season, or if the playoffs tell you he'll probably fall into the 40-point category. I wouldn't say he'd fall below 40, but maybe he falls back down, right? And then in the regular season, Husso was fantastic, 25, 7, and 6 with a 919 save percentage. And again, Binnington was 18, 14, and 4 with a 901 save percentage. So during the regular season, Husso was the better goaltender. He was the starter going into the playoffs. Binnington got hot when he was put in the playoffs. And then, of course, the Kadri incident takes place. And we'll probably be talking about that for years. I would think that's going to be talked about for years. The major for the hit on Pavelski in Game 7 for Vegas. The Kreider hit on Price in 2014. There are certain moments that get etched into the memories of hockey fans and don't really get out easily. And I think that's going to be one of them. So their pending UFA list is interesting. They've got Bozak, who I think if he wants to come back, they'll find a way to bring him back. Perron, I think it's important they re-sign Perron and keep him. But again, it's a matter of how long and for how much. Nick Leddy, I think, was a good rental. And if they decide to keep him around, I really wouldn't blame him. One thing we saw with St. Louis in the playoffs was depth is really important on the blue line. They have a ton of that. So yeah, I think it's important to keep some of that around. Rosen, I think Rosen probably goes onto the market. If they decide to keep him around, that should be fine too. And Ville Husso. How much is Ville Husso worth and for how long? And if Ville Husso wants to get paid like a regular season starter, then you've got a problem because Binnington's already making starter money. And then you'd be investing a ton of money into your goaltending. So one thing that I know there will be some Blues fans they'll advocate for, and it's similar to in Vancouver. Halak's out, so you want Spencer Martin. If you're a Canucks fan, that's the popular choice because he looked good in his call-ups. Charlie Lindgren looked good in his call-ups for St. Louis. So it is possible that we'll see fans want, maybe some pundits want, a Binnington-Lindgren duo. I've always liked Charlie Lindgren. I've always thought good goaltender. He just ended up in the AHL. So if they go that way, I don't think it necessarily hurts them. But I do think they'll try to keep Husso around. But it's how much is he worth, right? He's a young goaltender. If you sign him for a 4-year contract, it probably doesn't hurt you at all. And then it's just a matter of making sure you can keep everything cap friendly under the cap, which is good because I get the pending UFAs and RFAs from cap friendly. It's a fantastic site. I can't say enough good things about cap friendly. On the RFA side of things, Mikkola, probably a bridge deal, 2 years for him. And Scott Perunovich, who looked fantastic. If there's a player that they're going to say, you know what, we're going to speculate on this guy becoming a really good player, I wouldn't blame them. If they decided to throw a 5 or 6 year deal at him and maybe give him money that fans who don't watch St. Louis would say, wow, really? But honestly, I thought Perunovich fit in really well in the playoffs, and I didn't think he played badly at all. I thought it was pretty seamless when everybody's getting hurt. I thought he did a good job. I would even go as far as to say that they showed in that second round that if everybody else returns, maybe Torrey Krug becomes available. Maybe they look at, and again, I know that sounds crazy, but maybe, right? Maybe, and I know there's Blues fans who are going to say, Parayko. I still think Parayko's an excellent defenseman. If St. Louis ended up putting him on the market, I don't think there'd be any shortage of teams looking for Colton Parayko. But I'd honestly be quite surprised if St. Louis did move Parayko. So if we look at their playoff history over the last 10 years, 2013, they lose in the first round against LA in 6. 2014, first round again. This time against Chicago in 6. 2015, first round against Minnesota in 6. So that's pretty repetitive and probably very frustrating. So in 2016, they solved some of that frustration with a loss in the conference final to San Jose. Although, again, in 6. They do seem to like losing in 6. They don't force 7th games very well. And then in 2017, they lost in round 2 to Nashville in 6. 2018, they did not make the playoffs. I already mentioned that they barely missed that year. 2019, it's the Stanley Cup. Of course, famously, and I keep seeing people talking about how St. Louis was terrible. I do think there's some revisionist history when it comes to St. Louis, and I say this for a simple reason. That year, they had a rough go of it. They did. But they still had a lot of games in hand on teams, and their winning percentage was never really that bad. Were they at the bottom of the league? Yes. But were they awful? No. And then they were the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in the second half of the season for the National Hockey League. And they're an example of why it's important to look at the teams that are hottest in the second half of the season to get an indication for who might be ready for a run. And in that case, it was St. Louis. 2020, they lost in the first round against Vancouver in 6. 2021, they lost in the first round against Colorado in 4 straight. And then this year, Colorado again, this time in 6 once again. So they've lost in 6 a lot, but that Stanley Cup in 2019 took a lot of the sting out of it. Now it's a matter of trying to win that second Stanley Cup, which can be just as tough as winning the first. That first Stanley Cup, there are teams that still don't have it, but there are plenty of teams that have had one. It feels like there's a lot of teams anyways that have had one and haven't had 2 yet. Carolina's one that comes to mind as a team that's had 1 cup and is looking to win a second right now. But I do think there's a solid enough team here that you can make that work. There, of course, would be the question of, so what if Tarasenko again comes out and says, I'd still like to move on before next season? What do you do there? I think there's going to be some moves made, probably some cap-saving moves here and there as well. But it's all about keeping St. Louis in the hunt and trying to get them back to a Stanley Cup. So, can they get back is the question I have for all you fine people watching this video, and if they can, how do they get there? Do you not change anything and just say, you know what, this team can win it just as is? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.